Knowles on the news. Susan Knowles.
Hi, everyone. So glad that you're here today. I want to just remind you that you can follow us and get all of the podcasts by going to Spreaker.com and just searching for Stand for Truth Radio. And you can even log in and follow us so that you get all the podcasts as they become available. In addition, you can follow me on Twitter at Susan Knowles and go to my YouTube account at Susan Knowles and get all of the videos there that I publish automatically. Well, I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about the election. I know we've talked about it a lot, and you hear it a lot in the news, and people are really talking about this election, probably more so than before. And I don't know why that is, and I kind of wanted to, talk to you about it, get your thoughts on it as well. I know last two times when Obama was running, I don't know, it was a different feel. It was one of those things where, at least the first time around, we still had hope that Obama wouldn't be elected, that the Republicans would come out and would vote and would make sure that he didn't get elected. But I think, looking back, a lot of people, of course, didn't want to vote for Romney, some with valid reasons, some maybe not so valid reasons. Some of the Christians stayed home because they couldn't bring themselves to vote for a Mormon, but I guess they could bring themselves either to not vote and allow someone like Obama to get in, or they just decided to go ahead and pull the lever for Obama. Not exactly sure. But then to come around and do it a second time was really something that was hard to get over. And I know that people that I know that are just progressive liberals who voted for Obama the first time, we're having a hard decision the second time around, thinking, I don't really want to vote for Obama. He hasn't done really great things. But they didn't want to go outside of party lines and vote for a Republican. So what did they do? They voted and helped to reelect someone who has been destroying America ever since he got in 2008. And some may call it transforming. I call it destroying. And here we are again. We're kind of at a crossroads again. And where are we going to go? And it seems like the first time, when Obama got in first and second time, it was more like we were on the other side. We weren't on the team that got all the special treatment. We were the ones that those on the left came looking for. And it seemed like everything was negative was happening to us. And here we are now with gun control. And it's once again being done to us and not for us or for our benefit. And I think, people keep saying, what is it about Donald Trump that people like? I can't understand it. Why do Tea Party members go for him? Why are those people who said that they were conservative going for him? And one prime example is Ann Coulter. She is more than in for Donald Trump. She is all in for Donald Trump. And I have to say, it is a little surprising because Ann touted herself as being completely conservative. And I don't, as much as someone could like or not like Donald Trump, I can't say that Donald Trump, in my opinion, is a very conservative individual. I think he has some progressive leanings, and you have to just look at, what he's done in the past to understand that. Now, that's not to say that he can't go on the conservative ticket and be primarily conservative, whatever the case may be. But, I think we have to open our eyes and see there are some progressive issues that he has. And I think we need to do this with all the candidates. We really need to open our eyes and look at every one of them. None of them are perfect, and we really have to keep that in mind. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to find a perfect candidate. There's no such thing. It's what are you willing to tolerate? What is more important to you? That's what you have to look at. But it seems that some people have just gone over the deep end one way and the other when they're talking about Donald Trump. I've never seen a candidate that has divided up the conservatives more than Donald Trump. Now, that's not Donald Trump's issue, not his fault. I'm just, pointing out facts that this is what is happening. On one side you have Mark Levin and Glenn Beck who just feel that Donald Trump is just the wrong candidate and that he could even turn out to be someone who doesn't even follow the Constitution and has become a dictator himself, much like, again, what I think we felt that Obama was doing, but we were on the receiving end of it rather than the one who's benefiting from it. And now the roles have reversed. If, in fact, Donald Trump were to become a dictator, I guess the speculation is that it would be more in our favor rather than the ones that supported Obama. And I think that's part of his appeal. People have gotten tired of being on the negative receiving end of everything. And, it's possible that people like Ann Coulter recognize that, and that's why she's all in. She maybe doesn't even care that he might be a dictator, just that because it's going the way it is, if we have somebody else like Hillary Clinton, you haven't seen anything yet if you want to see what a dictator is going to look like. And maybe Coulter is thinking, well, if we have Donald Trump, at least he would be in our favor most of the time, if not all the time. He would follow the Constitution, and it's a risk that she's willing to take. Now, other people absolutely don't feel that way about Donald Trump. They feel that he is going to do the absolute right thing and that he is the best candidate to help bring America back around to even a better country than it was before. And there are people like, again, Sean Hannity, who is for Trump, along with Ann Coulter. And now we have Sarah Palin, who Donald Trump yesterday was endorsed by Sarah Palin. And for a lot of people in the Tea Party, and I think Glenn Beck, one of these people who look at her as if, how in the world did Sarah Palin ever come around and endorse Donald Trump? And he's having a really hard time understanding why the Tea Party and conservatives, again, would vote for Donald Trump. And I think those that are in favor of having Donald Trump be the presidential candidate, they just look at him as someone who is a no-nonsense, tell it like it is, turn things around type of guy, that he's a businessman, that he knows what he's doing, and they're willing to overlook some of the things in the past. And I know, this has been from the very beginning. People who have another candidate spend so much time putting other candidates down that they're not getting anywhere. I mean, there are a lot of people who are spending 99% of their time telling the world, and our country especially, how bad Donald Trump is. From his being progressive in the past to voting for certain people, perhaps, for giving donations to certain people. And I get those. I mean, those things are important. They're important to me. But when you spend 99% of your time talking down about another candidate and you don't tell people why your candidate is the best one, it makes it look like that your candidate isn't very good and that you're having to attack another candidate in order to make your, hopefully make your candidate look good. And that never, ever works. I've said this on other programs. If you have a candidate that you feel is the one, then you need to tell people why your candidate is the best one for our country and not spend all of your time talking about why another candidate is the worst possible one for this country. It just doesn't work that way. You can't turn a negative into a positive that way. It just won't work. And I think people need to remember that. If you think Rand Paul is the best one, then go out there and tell everyone why they should vote for Rand Paul, but not why they shouldn't vote for someone else. And it's okay to have a candidate and say, well, I don't think Marco Rubio is good because, he voted for the Gang of Eight. Okay, great. Now leave it at that and go on and tell everybody why Rand Paul is so great. It's I don't know. There's this kind of a desperation this time, and I think there's also a desperation. When we're dealing with Ted Cruz, now we're back to the birther issue. Is he a naturalized citizen? And I know it really matters. It matters to me that we get somebody who is constitutionally correct in being a presidential candidate. I don't want to remove that from the Constitution or say it doesn't matter. It does absolutely matter to me if you're a naturalized citizen or not. And, I guess this is going to go all the way to the Supreme Court. Who knows? I believe I heard that Donald Trump or somebody else is going to file a lawsuit, or maybe already they have, to make that determination with Ted Cruz. Now, my thoughts are, that's all well and good. And if it turns out that he isn't the person that is capable and qualified to be the president because he doesn't fit into that naturalized citizen, then so be it. I like Ted Cruz. I think he is a great constitutionalist. I think personality-wise, it kind of hurts him. He isn't a Donald Trump. A lot of people don't like him because he has gone up against the GOP. And I think that's, people need to remember that too. He has done some really good things. He stood up to the GOP when you had the water carriers that just rolled over. I mean, he has tried. He has tried to do things the correct way for this country, and I haven't seen him doing things that, were a negative to this country. I mean, he is coming back to vote on a bill that needs voting on, and suspending his campaign for the day to come back and do it. And then we have people like Marco Rubio who says, well, I'm out campaigning to become president, so I don't have time for that. Well, I understand both sides, but my country is more important than your presidential campaign. Sorry, Marco, it just is. So I think we need to keep things in mind about all candidates. And I think if somehow, it's such a contentious thing these days. When you talk about Donald Trump, you have to be careful what you say because people get extremely angry if you say anything against him. Well, my thoughts are, if he is as great as everyone claims that he is, why are you upset? There's no reason to be upset. It's that same thing. If your candidate is the best one, then you know that he or she is, and you don't have to prove that to yourself or to anybody else. You may want to try to convince them, why your candidate is the best, like I said, and not talk down about other candidates. But, at the same time, you've just got to focus on your own candidate and not worry about anybody else and not get so upset about your own candidate. I think, if anything, what you should get upset about is if a Hillary supporter or a Bernie Sanders supporter comes and talks to you, that's the time, especially Hillary, that's the time to get upset. If you want to get upset and be divisive, do it at that point because there's no redeeming qualities whatsoever. I'm sorry. They're just not. As a political candidate, no redeeming qualities. If she gets into office, we are totally done. You won't even know that there was a constitution that ever existed when she gets through with you. So that would be the time to do it. But we don't need to attack each other about a candidate. Let's just work together and try to find the best candidate to go up against the other side. I don't even know if Hillary is going to be the candidate. The way it's looking with her emails now being really top secret information that she was sending in her emails. But who knows? I've said this many times before. This woman always lands on her feet, just like Bill, no matter what, lands on her feet. If these accusations were out there against you and me, you know as well as I do, we would all be in jail. We'd be sitting there waiting for our turn for a hearing. And she's not, because she's Hillary Clinton. And if you want to talk about something that's going to take up the time in the courts if she becomes president, and we're kind of worried about, well, is that going to take up time in the courts deciding whether or not, Ted Cruz is indeed qualified to run for the office of president? Well, what about a president who's sitting in office and there's so many charges against her? How is she going to run the country? Now, I don't even know if the Hillary supporters know any of this that's going on. I mean, there are people, I've watched this, the guy goes out on the street, a comedian or whomever, and the other day he was telling people, oh yeah, it's Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, he's a great astronaut, did you know that? He just made it to the moon today or whatever. And literally people are sitting there, they don't even know who Martin Luther King Jr. is. I mean, they have no idea. So, and when you tell them anything about Hillary, they have no idea what's going on with her. Most of these people who support her, or many, let's just say, they don't watch the news. They don't watch the reports. They don't read anything about her. The only thing that they see is something that, maybe in some magazine that they're looking at that has Hillary in such a positive light, how wonderful she is, how she's, out there for women's rights and abortion rights and everything else. So, let's just stick to what we need to and worry about how this woman doesn't get elected. Not about, the GOP, what's over there. That's going to take care of itself. It really will. The debates are going to take care of itself. People are going to either, get on the bandwagon for one person or the other. Now, I think it's interesting, getting back a little bit to Sarah Palin, why she endorsed Donald Trump over Ted Cruz, because before she was all in for Ted Cruz and really helped him become a senator. And, what are your thoughts about it? If Donald Trump brings her on into his cabinet, let's say he gets the nominee and he becomes president, what do you think? Should she be vice president? Would, in the election leading up to it, would having Sarah Palin as the VP hurt or help him? I mean, there are a lot of people that have grown sour to Sarah Palin, and there are a lot of people that absolutely love her. Now, I was one of those that was really for her when she was running with John McCain, even though I wasn't for John McCain. But they didn't allow her to be Sarah Palin. John McCain kind of kept a control over that, I think, and it didn't really work out well. And since then, it's kind of iffy. People have made a lot of disparaging comments about her and who she's become and who she, likes these days and on and on and on. So, what are your thoughts about that? Should she be a vice presidential candidate? Will that hurt him in any way? And I'd really like to hear from you. I mean, if you want to write me, you can write to Susan at SusanKnowles.com, and that's Knowles for Knowles. And just let me know what your feelings are about Sarah Palin. Now, some people have said that she wants a Secretary of Energy position. That's what I've heard, kind of the rumors that are flying around. I think it would be interesting to see, who he would pick. Because I think now, Cruz is out. Their bromance, as it were, is over. And he's not on Cruz's side anymore and has come out against Cruz. And so I don't know who that he would pick as VP. And that concerns me a little because, there aren't that many great candidates out there, to be honest with you. And I think the VP slot, while not as important, obviously, as the president, is a position that you need to look at in case something happened to the president. You would want to know that it wasn't Joe Biden who's the VP. Or someone like Joe Biden, of course. So you'd want to make sure that person could be a strong leader as well. So that will be kind of interesting to see what happens. And, those, again, that are not on the side of Donald Trump are with Levin. I missed one. Levin, Glenn Beck, and Michelle Malkin have really all come out against Donald Trump. So, not that he needs their stamp of approval or anything else, but it's just to see who's on these conservatives who are for and against. It's very interesting. I mean, it really is. It's really split the conservatives because you have Sean Hannity, Ann Coulter, Sarah Palin on one side, Mark Levin, Glenn Beck, and Michelle Malkin on the other. It's it's kind of odd to see, and it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Now, I know that Glenn Beck is going to be endorsing Ted Cruz this weekend in Iowa, and he's really pushing Ted Cruz. And he's always said that Ted Cruz was his person, his guy, but he kind of vacillates every now and then with saying, Marco Rubio. He could vote for Rubio if he had to. Rubio, I don't know what the love affair is with Rubio. I don't like him. I really don't. I don't trust him at all. The Gang of Eight thing for me was it. And I don't know. I mean, he'll say one thing one day, and the next day, one day he's against illegal immigration, the next day he's all gung-ho for it. I just see him as somebody who would say that he was going to do something and not really do it. And I mean, I guess we could say that about everybody. I would say with Cruz, he has been pretty consistent in who he says that he is and what he will do. He's usually done everything that he says he was going to do. I don't know what Donald Trump would do. I think also with Donald Trump, and I could be wrong about that, I think that people think, with Obama, you couldn't get him out. You couldn't impeach him just because, the first African-American president wouldn't look good. So we can't get him out. But I think people are looking at it as, if Donald Trump were to get in there and not do what he says he was going to do, I think people really would turn on him. I mean, all these people that are for him, you would think that they would turn on him and impeach him if he just turned out to be somebody totally not the person he said he was. But then again, the argument on the other side is there are a lot of Democrats who apparently, have felt that their own party is going too far left, and they would look at Donald Trump and vote for him. And I think that scares some people. But you have to remember also the same thing happened with Ronald Reagan. Now, Ronald Reagan, I would say, wasn't like Trump in that Ronald Reagan didn't put people down a lot. That's the one criticism I have with Donald Trump. I really wish that he would stop with the barbs against people. It's childish. It reminds me of a 2-year-old, and it's not, I don't know, it's not as respectful as I would like to see somebody who's running for the office of president to be acting. I don't want to hear that, Glenn Beck is fat or that Cruz is, this and that. I mean, it's just, it's as bad as when people say those things and said those things about Sarah Palin. There's no purpose in it other than to put people down and turn people against them. And that's not, we wouldn't teach our kids to do that. So I don't want to see that coming out of the mouth of any candidate. I really don't. And I think some of the other candidates, I mean, it's not personal attacks that they do against each other, like, Marco and Jeb. Those really aren't so personal. It's not about Jeb's looks or Marco's looks or whatever. But I think Donald really gets to be very personal. And I think it's just easier to do that, and it stirs up the crowd. And I get that. But it's not something that I really want to see. It reminds me a little bit of how I feel after Obama comes out each time that there's an issue with guns, and it's like, well, if that were my son or if he were my son, I don't want to hear that. It's different. It's similar though. It's something that just kind of like rubs you the wrong way and just isn't productive. It really doesn't get us anywhere, and I don't like things that make people look small or one-sided with an agenda. So I would just say to Donald's people, come on, let's just try to change that. It would be like somebody coming out against a president and saying, oh, well, he's got big goofy ears and wears big goofy glasses and he looks ridiculous in red and, whatever the case may be. It's a personal attack instead of a productive one. And it doesn't lead to anything positive that people can work together on either party, together with, bipartisan or within your own party. It's just, let's stick to what that person's actions are and then I can get behind you. You can talk about their policies, what they should have done, and I think that's perfectly fine. But let's leave the personal stuff out. It's not getting us anywhere. In other news, we have a report out this week from the Washington Post that says illegal immigrant population in the United States has fallen below 11 million, continuing a nearly decade-long decline. And I don't know that I believe that, because number one, I think there's far more than 11 million illegal immigrants in this country right now. And I think those numbers have always been touted as being less than what they really are. But this is from a report from the Center for Migration Studies, a New York think tank. Now, I would think that the think tank is probably a left-wing organization if I were to make a guess. So, again, I'm not putting much strength and validity into what they're saying. But they're saying that the number of undocumented immigrants has fallen each year since 2008. Driven primarily by a steady decline in illegal migrants from Mexico. Now, why would that be? To me, I'm looking at it. They're getting more, illegal immigrants are getting more today than they've ever gotten before. They get Obamacare. They get a driver's license. Obviously, they can vote when that happens. But in California, I think they've been voting for a long time. You don't need a driver's license in California to vote. You just walk in there and say, hey, I'm Joe Smith, or Juan Smith or whoever, and they'll allow you to vote. They don't look at anything. You just go for it. You sign your name, and out the door you go. So I don't know that I believe that report. But they said even sharper declines are from South America and Europe have contributed to the overall numbers, even as illegal immigration from Central America is on the rise. And it also says that someone from the U.S., a government demographer, that the document could have an impact on the fiery debate over immigration that has unfolded on the 2016 presidential campaign trail. But see, there again, we're bringing this out now. We've known this for a while, obviously. If there's been a decline since 2008, why are you bringing that out now? And it's going to be something that can be used during this upcoming election. And again, if you're on the left, you're going to use this report to say, see there, those GOP candidates, they just hate illegal immigrants. They hate people. And Donald Trump, he doesn't like anyone. He wants to keep everybody out, so he's not a good person. And that's exactly what they're going to say. And then President Obama and Democratic candidates say the border has never been more secure and call for comprehensive immigration reform to naturalize immigrants already here. So everyone has their own agenda. This report is coming out at a time just before the election. Again, that's going to be used against the GOP and those on the right to say, here's another war. We've got war on women. We've got war on illegal immigrants. We've had Donald Trump, who doesn't want any Muslims here or any other immigrants. He's such a bad man, yada, yada, yada. That's exactly what we're doing here. And the Washington Post is more than happy to come out with this and be the one who breaks the news, if you will, so that the people on the left, the progressive left candidates, the socialists that we have running, can be helped. And then we're getting more information regarding the Dow, and it is off right now, more than 400 points, and it continues to go up and down, and usually closing down. China's markets are also down. I've seen reports that the Japanese markets are down, Australia's markets are off. It's not looking like a good situation, although we're being told everything is great, the economy, woohoo, wonderful, wonderful, everything's making a comeback. I gave a little report yesterday at my Knowles on the News, and if you didn't get a chance to see that, you can go to Spreaker.com, go and search for Stand for Truth Radio, and look at my Knowles on the News for the 19th. And in that, I talked about the economy is really bad for everyone, apparently, because ISIS. is slashing its salaries that it pays to its fighters in half. Now, as I said yesterday, I was shocked because I didn't even know that ISIS paid people to go out and fight. I thought maybe the benefit was just being with the ISIS people and getting to strap bombs around your waist, and that was all you needed. But apparently, they're paid between $400 and $1,200 a month, depending, I guess, on if they pull the trigger or if they wear the bombs around their waist. And their spouses get $50 as a stipend, and for each kid, they're paid $25. So you can see the value just goes down more and more as you're a female or a child. But in any event, I thought it was interesting that they were slashing the salaries because the economy was so bad for them due to, just the acts that they do, the war, if you will, that they're fighting. It takes a lot of money. Someone from the United States said, I think it may have been from the U.S. State Department, said that, in their most successful year, ISIS made $2 billion. But that wasn't so much considering it took about $2 billion to run their territory and keep the territory up in Iraq. So I guess war is very expensive. I don't think that's going to stop ISIS from doing what they do. And I don't necessarily know that it's going to stop people from running to ISIS and still wanting to sign up to be a jihadist. We also got news this week of another attack, at least current anyway. At least 19 were killed in an attack on the Baka Khan University in Pakistan. And it's funny because in the very beginning, the Taliban would not take credit for it, and then they came out later and took credit for it. It said that militants raided a university in northwest Pakistan, and their timing of their attack was a ceremony was going on at the school, and that would ensure maximum casualties. Great people, unbelievable. And these are the people that, we want to just open our doors and let in everybody without being properly vetted. And I'm sure they're part of those people, maybe not from the exact same region, but they have their own agenda that typically goes against the United States. And who's to say they don't go over into Syria? I mean, people that cannot be trusted are everywhere, and we have to face that. Now, we can sit there and say, oh, well, they're nice people and everybody's nice, and maybe it's just one, but, we can't assume that, and we can't keep putting America in harm's way by assuming that. Now, it said after security forces combed the campus block by block after the massacre, the person who was the minister there said that 19 civilians were killed along with 4 tourists, and he expects the number of civilian deaths to increase. And apparently there's a conflict in how many people were actually killed, because earlier an Army spokesman said that 21 civilians had been killed. And we're being told that this massacre took place about 25 miles away from where the Pakistan Taliban slayed 145 people, including 132 children, in a school attack in December 2014. And one Taliban spokesman came out and said that the attack was in retaliation for military operations against the group. And the same person was also the mastermind behind the December 2014 attack, we're being told. But then right after that, I guess another spokesman from the Pakistan Taliban said that, they disavowed any role in it. So maybe the Taliban needs to get together and come up with a decision on what they're going to put out to the news. Again, we have to watch our borders. We really, really do. I know this president doesn't seem to understand that in his administration, but I think the American citizens understand that all too well. And then you may remember back earlier in the week when Obama pardoned 7 Iranians in that U.S.-Iranian swap, that great deal. You know, the one where America just benefited greatly from having our sailors taken captive and shown pictures with them on their knees with their hands cupped behind their heads. You know, those lovely pictures. Well, I don't know if you heard the rest of the news because it's been kind of hush-hush. You know, we did so well in that we can't allow any more information to get out. But apparently, reports say that there are now 2 SIM cards missing from satellite phones that were on the vessels. And after they were returned to us, gee golly, you know, they were gone. I guess they just fell out someplace. I don't really think the Iranians would have taken it. Do you? Anyway, the president pardoned 7 people, 6 of whom were dual citizenship from Iran and America. And these people, as he said, you know, he wanted to make sure that you knew that they were described as nonviolent offenders who had violated the trade embargo with Tehran. No big deal, you know, just a little violation. And they're not violent, so don't worry. And same thing that, you know, Governor Jerry Brown says in California. Don't worry, these are people. They're not violent. They just had little drug issues. So, but we're going to let them out early. Don't worry about it. They're not going to hurt you. And we found out that, you know, that's not true. And anyway, back to the Iranians. The 7 that were pardoned. Now, when you pardon somebody, that means everything that you did before then is wiped clean. You have absolutely no restrictions. It's as though nothing ever happened. It can't be used against you. Nobody's going to bring it up. You are free as a bird to do exactly what you want to do. And apparently these 7 decided what was in their best interest, and they're just going to stay in the United States. I mean, why would you go back to Iran when it's so bad over there with the government that's in charge right now? Why would you do that? So let's just stay in America, because under the terms of a pardon, we don't have to leave. We can stay here as long as we want. And there's nothing to keep them from doing illegal acts again. And I know many of you are probably thinking, well, but they were pardoned, and so you can't hold that against them. Those illegal acts were just wiped clean. That may be true according to the law, but we don't have to close our eyes and our minds to the fact that they were criminals, they were charged, they were convicted, and we just let them go. And there's no proof that they won't turn around and do similar acts or other acts. So, but I'm sure that this president won't really care. He'll be gone by then, hopefully. In 2017, he'll be out. And whatever happens afterwards, what these people do afterwards, well, he won't have to worry about it. That won't be part of his legacy. What will be part of his legacy is just how wonderful a job he did with the nuclear treaty and getting these sailors returned after they drifted over or purposely went over or whatever they did into Iranian waters. And again, what has concerned me so much is that how many people in social media have talked about and mocked me for things that I've said in my article that's up on the Blaze about diplomacy and Obama just wanting to have a presidential legacy with all this. But how, mocking me of, well, gosh, what did you want? War? Look how wonderful all of this turned out. And not only that, but this gives us an opportunity to be friends with Iran, to really open up relations for the first time. Why should we treat these people so poorly? Oh, and by the way, the United States would have been much worse. They probably would have killed those Iranians. So basically, all the propaganda that we have heard from the left really is working. Not only is the United States the bad one here, the bad guy who would have killed all those poor Iranians had the situation been reversed, but my gosh, just like with Cuba, look at this. We can just open up relations with these people. How wonderful is all this? And after all, that money was theirs in the first place. Why did we take it in the first place? And they never even consider the fact that all of the oil now that Iran is putting on the market is hurting the markets. It's glutting the markets with oil. And it's hurting the oil riggers and people associated with oil in America. Those people are losing their jobs. But then again, what we've learned from the progressives is that oil is a bad thing. Oil is a demon. Oil should be gotten away with. Fossil fuels. I even heard, Leonardo DiCaprio. Here we go with the Hollywood types out again. Leo DiCaprio. Let's stop using fossil fuels because they should stay in the ground where they belong. I wonder if he feels that way about vegetables when they're grown. Should they stay in the ground where they belong? Should we? Oh, gosh, I don't know. If I hear another Hollywood type even talking anymore, I don't know about you. I don't even want to go to movies anymore because I think most of the Hollywood people the celebrities are involved with this administration and the propaganda, the climate change propaganda and everything else. I don't even want to see a movie. I really, honestly don't want to see it. I don't want to give these people another dime to continue doing what they do and doing what they do best, which is acting. I mean, they can act. And I think a lot of them, what they do is they just go on out and say, yeah, I just have a role here I've been paid for or I get some benefit from. So I'm just going to act in this role. No big deal. But some of them, they're not acting. They really, really believe what they're saying. And I think Leonardo is probably one of those people. He probably truly believes that we should stop using any type of fossil fuel, that we should go to little windmills or whatever we have to do to get our electricity. Or maybe we shouldn't use electricity at all. But, once he leaves his mansion and fires all the people that work for him and all of his bodyguards and all the benefits he gets from being filthy rich and can afford anything he wants and can afford to tell me what I need to do with my life, then maybe I'll change what I do. But until then, I'm of the belief that we have enough fossil fuel right here in the United States that we should get and that we should use so that we're not dependent upon the markets out there and Saudi Arabia. 'Cause we'll never do that because we've got to continue to give our money to Saudi Arabia. It's ridiculous. If those, the progressives are always coming up with things about what need to be changed. What they want to change, though, are the necessities, how you use them, if you can use them, and which ones you can use them. They always want to take the good things and change those to a negative. They never want to take those things that are negative and make them positive. How can we do things better? Let's quit giving money to Saudi Arabia. Let's quit doing those things, which would make it better for us. We could use our own oil. We could become more independent and not have to be controlled by anyone. But, again, this is our society today with the people who are in charge. They are globalists. And whether you believe it or not, people have said they want a one world order. I have to agree. We're moving at a fast rate towards that. Everything has a global flair to it. Everything. We've invited the UN into everything, even more so than I think that we've done before. We have Agenda 2030. We have Agenda 21. I mean, seriously, we're trying, and I say we, not us, but the progressives on the left are trying, and even some on the right, they're trying to do everything that they can do to control every aspect of your life. And I know people are sitting there who maybe aren't reading a lot or don't watch the news, and they're like, oh, come on, that's just such a conspiracy theory. No, I'm sorry, it isn't. And if you have time or if you can make time, and if you don't want to, then this won't matter to you, you should really pick up some books and read what's going on. It will open your eyes. Even past guests of mine go back and listen to the podcast at Spreaker.com under Stand for Truth Radio and listen to some of the experts that have talked about what is going on. And it's happening at a breakneck speed. And I really do expect this president, when he leaves office, to end up over in the UN. I really do think that he wants to be the leader of the UN one day. I mean, what could be better for Obama? Somebody who just, I think he looks at himself as, the leader of everything right now. I mean, I really do. You talk about someone who it really has a huge ego. I think he sees himself as someone who can right all the wrongs in the world. And what better position to do that in but at the UN? A long time ago, we should have stopped the UN from involving themselves into our country. But we didn't do that. We didn't do that. And it just continues to grow under the current leadership. And if Hillary gets in, the UN will just become a household word. I mean, seriously. These people, if you look back and you see what has been done and the laws that have been initiated, even with allowing all the illegal immigrants in here and wanting to bring the refugees over from Syria, on and on and on, that's not what a country does. A country doesn't try to destroy itself by, take for example Germany. I think Germany is really destroying itself. They've allowed in so many of the Syrian refugees. The country has become overrun by these refugees. And it's not good. It's not going well for Germany. If you've watched any of the films, heard about the complaints from the people there, it's not good. And there have been many attacks by these Syrian refugees in Germany and other countries, and especially when it comes to raping women. You can believe it or not. I mean, it's just the way it is. Go out there and read on the internet, anything you want to read, and you'll find out the hell a lot of these women are being put in because of the fact that the Syrian refugees and other migrants feel that they have a right to rape women. I mean, it's unbelievable. And if you allow people like that to come here into the United States and just overwhelm our system, we've lost our country for good. There's no turning that one around. In other news, in Germany, we learned that this week there was a 20-year-old woman who was standing near the tracks of the subway, waiting for the train to come, just minding her own business, 20 years old, and a 28-year-old man now is being held on suspicion of homicide because while she was standing there, he walked up, pushed her onto the tracks, and she was killed. And it just so happened that other people who were standing around overpowered him, or he would have run away, and have taken him into custody now. And they said that he was a man who was born in Germany, but had Iranian citizenship. So, and also previous convictions. So who knows what his motive was? Was it connected to, who knows, ISIS? I mean, it could be in a number of things, but I think with so much unrest going on in Germany from the illegal immigrants coming in, even if this guy is not connected in any way to that, it just gives people like a person who is sort of prone to doing that, somebody who's had prior convictions, according to the reports, just gives them a green light, if you will, to do more harm. It's a cluster of violence going on over there, and I think people are just starting to, become part of that. It's just, I don't know. And if we had something like that in the United States, again, if we're overwhelmed by people here that have not been properly vetted, that are prone to doing things like that, or even worse, we're going to be in so much trouble. And I know that you know that. It's convincing the other people because the people on the left, the progressives, they think this is the best thing ever. Changing America into something that it never has been, to them, is the best thing in the world that could happen. Bring America to her knees, change America, change the demographics and everything forever. They would absolutely love that. So just keep your eyes open, is all I can say. Be vigilant in what you do. Because as we think that there's nothing to worry about sometimes here in America, I think that's really just not accurate. And we have, a lot of concerns here in the United States, just things sometimes in our society, we just sit and watch things sort of unravel at a high rate of speed. There's a report out on the Blaze that nearly half of young people are actively seeking pornography weekly or more frequently. And more than 1 in 4 individuals between the ages of 25 and 30 first viewed smut before hitting puberty. That in no way, shape, or form is good. Now, I know many people, when they were growing up, they said, I used to look at Playboy or something like that. I'd sneak pictures. And I think probably, out of curiosity, a lot of kids have done that. But this seems to be, one of the worst things that I've seen. It's not about sneaking a quick look at a picture. This seems to be a bigger problem among younger respondents, with many reporting that they see little wrong with adult entertainment. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact we've stopped, and our society has, we've really stopped allowing many of our children to be children. They're exposed to so many things that they shouldn't be exposed to at such a young age. And adults, in a lot of respects, many adults, expect them to know how to react to those things. I've heard a lot of times parents will say to me, well, I don't understand why they did that. They should know better. They don't know better unless you teach them. Our children don't come ready-made adults. They just don't. And really, they should be children for a very long time until they're ready to be adults. And we should be teaching them how to be adults. And I think this is probably just one more thing that our parents are going to be faced with. They're going to have to teach children right from wrong when it comes to pornography. And, the report goes on to say that it's not entirely surprising, considering the expansion of new technologies. Kids are really getting access to almost anything that they want to get access on. And, kids are smart. Man, they know how to hack into things. I don't know where they learned this, but they do. And I think it's really difficult for parents to keep up with the changing technologies today. A kid can tell you, I'm not doing that. And, you go to check or whatever, and you may not even be aware of what you're looking at. Again, they're getting very, very sophisticated, and probably more sophisticated than many parents. And it may be that parents have to go and learn more about technology than they already know, which is, adding more things on to parents' plates as if they had enough time to do all of that now. But I think it's going to become necessary. You're raising kids here, according to this article, that are going to be subjected to things that they absolutely shouldn't see. And that is going to change them as an adult. And what is that going to mean for our society? More promiscuity than we already have, more pregnancies, more disease. I don't know. My guess would be that it would be. And it says here that most teens, about 90%, and young adults, 96%, also tend to have a cavalier attitude about porn, speaking about it in either accepting, encouraging, or neutral ways, according to the study. And this is reinforced with the finding that only 1 in 20 young adults and 1 in 10 teens say that their friends view looking at smut as a bad thing. Again, I think our society is teaching children that everything is open to you. Whatever you want to do, whatever feels good, do it. that nobody has the right, including your parents, to tell you not to do something. I mean, you watch TV, that's the message. The music, that's the message. Everything, that's the message. Even more so than when we were children. I mean, there's so much today that is so different than 20 years ago, 10 years ago. When I talk to kids in middle school and high school, there's absolutely no qualm for many of them about having sex before marriage and having unprotected sex. I mean, it is amazing to me that we're in 2016 and this is the attitude that you can do whatever you want. And there's no thinking about the future. And kids are prone that way anyway. It's about right now, today. They don't think about the future, and that's why they have parents to show them the importance of thinking about the future. But many young people today, they will have sex, and it's almost like the same importance or significance as choosing what color socks you're going to wear for the day. I mean, seriously, it doesn't have any importance to it. I mean, when you live in a society that doesn't necessarily believe anymore, the majority, the fact that you need to get married, that you get married because you want to have children, there are no rules of that way. Typically, a lot of people aren't getting married, so why are you saving yourself for marriage? It's so much peer pressure that if you don't have the parents constantly there, even when the parents are there, sometimes it just doesn't work out. But especially if you don't have the parents' guidance, you can almost 100% guarantee that the kids are going to go down the wrong path. Parents, I think your role is more critical now than it has ever been. And I don't know how you work that out with your busy schedules. I don't. I commend you for all that you do. And there's a lot on everyone's plate, especially when it's rushing at, feels like 1,000 miles a minute to try to get everything done, to have one more thing to do. But your role is paramount. And if we're ever going to try to change what's happening with the kids today, we really have to step it up. The progressives are far beyond where we are in taking our kids where they want them to go. And that is where you're seeing them go right now. The attitudes of what they should do are put there by the progressives. The attitudes of our enemies not really being our enemies have been taught to them by the progressives. Most of what you see as a result today of what really isn't going well in this country has been taught to your children since they started public schools, and probably even before that in kindergarten. It's very subtle, but it's consistent. And that's how you change someone's way of thinking. And a lot of young people today, and I don't speak for all of them, but many of them are not concerned about what's going on in the world. A lot of them don't even know. And I know that, again, kind of is the way young people typically are, but it seems like today they're even more unaware of what's going on because I think we don't have the mainstream media that's giving them information. We just pretend that everything in the media is fine, and we only feed the information that we want fed to the public today in mainstream media. That's why it's so important to have shows like this one and other shows that try to tell you the truth of what's really happening so that you can spread the word, that you can have your children listen to these podcasts so that they understand what is really happening in the world. Because I'll tell you, the left is not going to tell them. The left is going to tell them exactly what they need to do and not expect them to have any critical thinking about anything that's being fed them. And that's where you come in and the importance of your job. This week is going to be like other weeks. It's going to be a very fast-paced week with a lot of things occurring across our country and in the world. I think we need to continue to stay vigilant, continue not to be divisive with each other because of an election. We need to stand together as one country that is trying to do everything in its power to make this country better than it was before and to help this country survive. We have so many who are trying to take this country down, and it's up to us to help this country survive and get it back to a country that we all recognize. So take care of yourselves. Have a great week. And until next time, this is Susan Knowles with Knowles on the News.